Guys, spooky fishing came out today. It's insane. There's a new fishing rod I heard, and apparently it is just insane, boys. I heard that it's just so good. It's called the Soul Whip. We're going to go fish with it just to test her out. All right, boys, we're at a pond. We got the Soul Whip in hand. Let's start some fishing. Let's go! I wonder why it isn't working. Hello random people on the internet, my name is Banana, and today we are talking about the Soul Whip, which is a brand new weapon added in the spooky fishing update to Hypixel Skyblock. This thing is really cool. It's not actually a fishing rod, it's a weapon. It fires a really cool beam in front of you. It's like a curved mage beam in dungeons, sort of, but this thing is absolutely nuts, and I'm just going to go over everything about it. If you don't know how to get it, you got to use these soul fragments to craft it. You need 8 of them, and you're going to be able to get the Soul Whip. This thing is really good. Also, these soul fragments, I feel like they're super underpriced right now because they make this really good talisman, the Eternal Hoof. That's going to make you able to do spooky events way faster, and you need 8 of them. Like this talisman and this talisman, they're being sort of slept on how good they are because, I mean, getting a higher % chance to get these trick-or-treat chests is awesome. But these soul fragments are really cool. The Soul Whip is really cool. This thing requires Catacombs 30 if you do convert it, but you don't have to convert it, and it is sort of cool outside of dungeons as well. So we are just going to talk about everything about this thing. Alright, so let's do a damage test with this thing. Now, I'm going to use a Livid Dagger to test against it, because right now, the Soul Whip is priced out at about 12 mil, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 12.9 mil right now for one Soul Whip, and if I look at the Livid Dagger price, it's probably going to be very similar. We got a, oh, I did not look at the price there. We got 11.3 mil, so they are pretty similar in price. I think it's going to be a good comparison. So we're going to hit with the front-facing Livid Dagger. If you didn't know, Livid Dagger has a backstab first, but we're going to look at front-facing because you're not going to be able to backstab all the time. So you're going to deal 177k right there, 185. That one was definitely a backstab. 161. So we're getting 160 to 170k generally. And that's really good. This is a good weapon, obviously. But let's whip out the Soul. Let's whip out the Soul Whip. That was definitely intended. So we're getting to 160 to 170k with the other one. We're going to be hitting 207k on that, 220k. Oh my goodness. Boys, see, once again, that was a backstab, 369. Backstabs are going to be better on this thing, but you're not always going to be able to get them. So 186, we got 171, but then you straight up whip this thing out. You get 211. So this is better than a front-facing Livid Dagger. If you are just fighting a mob head-on, this is going to be better than a Livid Dagger for damage. If you are fighting behind the enemy, which is only a couple enemies in the game that you can consistently get behind, but the Livid Dagger will be better in that case. But another thing to remember about this weapon is that it can actually pierce, and it does full damage when it's piercing. So we got these 2 zombies right there, and we shot right through them. We are able to get massive lines like during the terracotta phase in dungeons. This is really, really good. It's really fun. Like you can see right there, you can hit a lot of mobs with a lot of damage. So this thing debatably better than Livid Dagger. I'm not really sure right now. I can't really make a insane statement here, but this thing is for sure really cool. And one thing that you do have to get used to is the arc on this thing. You can see I'm aiming a little bit lower than the mobs usually, because if you're up close and you're aiming like directly at them, sometimes you can miss. Like let me try and miss. I'm gonna try and be bad. I'm going too close there. So right there, you can see I'm clicking directly on him, but it is missing because I am like right at the tip of the arc is where his head would be. So you need to get used to that, especially on smaller mobs like wolves if you were fighting them, or like just pretty much any of the mobs that are like 1 block high. Like if you're fighting any of the like spirit animals in the floor 4 boss fight, it's going to be weird. But this thing is definitely really cool. Now I'm going to show you it in dungeons, but I'm not Catacombs 30, and this thing requires a Catacombs 30 player to use it when it's converted. Luckily, my friend Soko is actually Catacombs level 31, I believe. So I'm going to hand it off to him, and I'm still going to commentate, but it's going to be his gameplay. You should check out his channel, top right now. He's pretty cool. He hasn't been uploading that much because he hasn't had any good ideas, but he has been streaming a bit, and you guys should definitely check him out because he's really good at the Catacombs. Alright, so at the beginning here, we're just going to look at him clearing a bunch of these enemies because this thing really shines in one thing, and that's clearing. It's able to go right through enemies. Now, Soko really hadn't gotten used to the curve on it. This is his first run running with it, so he actually didn't know one strategy until the end, and he also was still just getting used to aiming. But you can see he is just melting through every single mob. There's not any mob that he's not one-shotting with this thing. And I mean, it should be like that. It's a Catacombs 30 weapon. This thing is really good. He's not dying at all. He's staying pretty much full health. But I really think that this thing shines most in something like the boss fight. So now that you've seen just a little bit of general clearing with the weapon, let's go right over there. So coming into Satan, I told him to try and kill the golems because the golems are some of the hardest mobs to do. The Phantom Rod is really good at killing these golems. I talked about that in my last video right here, but you can see that it does pretty well against them. He's doing just like standard golem damage as a high-level berserker. But then I mentioned to him that maybe he should try and fight multiple. And this is where this thing gets really good. You can see he just killed 3 of those golems very fast. And then he comes over for this terracotta phase and does the exact same thing. Terracottas get absolutely shredded by this weapon. They are just destroyed. These big waves of enemies are something that the Soul Whip just prospers at taking down. That it just destroys. You can see he is just going to be dealing a lot of damage. This is probably the most times I've seen the terracottas just be dead because we had a guy with bone meringue and we had Soko using this Soul Whip. So you can see he's just shredding through everything. He's getting a lot of combat XP here. But let's look at it against the boss specifically. So we told our group to let Soko solo Satan because we knew he could do it. And right now you can see the damage is okay. It's not that great. But then he realized something, and this is the strategy that I was talking about earlier. You can left and right click with this thing at the same time, essentially doubling your melee damage with it. So you can deal a lot of damage. I'm going to run that clip back as I'm talking about it. He destroyed Satan there once he figured out that you can left and right click. And you can do this on any mob. Any mob that is just like able to be hit by the Soul Whip, because there are some that cannot be hit by the whip. Svens for some reason cannot get hit by the whip. Revenants can, but Svens can't. But any mob that can be hit by it can be meleeed and hit with the right click at the same time. And that just makes this thing so good because it's already better than a Livid Dagger in a lot of cases. It's really close to a Shadow Fury in damage, but against something like bosses like that, doubling your melee damage is really good. And he was able to solo Satan pretty quickly there. The only thing that can solo it faster is like a mage with rend or a archer with multiple bone meringues. But that was a really good solo, and I think that really showed just how awesome this weapon is. Now that we've seen the weapon in Catacombs, I just want to talk about it a little more. This is not a weapon for mages. That's one thing I do want to point out. It is based on your melee damage, and as far as I know, mage has a base melee damage of like 20 because it actually is only buffed when you are using your beam, and the beam does not count as an actual melee. So this is probably not going to be a weapon you want to get if you only play mage. But tanks, healers, archers maybe, but especially berserkers, this weapon is really good. It is Catacombs 30. That is really hard to do. I haven't even gotten there yet, but with Floor 7 coming out soon, this might be a weapon you want to pick up. And if you want to invest in it right now and just don't convert it, it's going to be good for things like Slayer, for things like zealot grinding. Like zealot grinding with this thing also feels sort of gross. Like if we go and we just go and kill some guys, like getting a little bit of extra range that the zealots aren't going to dodge while you're running around with your young armor, why would you pass up on that? Like It's really cool. I think that's the main thing about this weapon. It is probably the most unique weapon we've seen added to Skyblock recently, because it's a rod that isn't actually a rod, but it's not a sword either. It's its own thing. And I think that's really cool to see. I'm really surprised that they would release something so good and so cool from the spooky event. I'm really happy with what they did with the event overall. The admins did a great job. Doctor did a good job with this. The other admins did a good job with the other part of the event. But yeah, that's going to be the Soul Whip. This thing is nuts. I've said it a lot. This thing is really good. I personally probably won't be using it that much, but that's because I'm a mage. When I'm playing normally, this will probably be in my hotbar. Same with the Phantom Rod. Pretty much all the stuff they added right now is really, really good. So if you want to see a video on any of the other new stuff they added, leave that in the comments below. Leave your opinions on the Soul Whip down below as well. I'm really interested to see what you guys think about it. But that's going to be all for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, smash that like button, maybe even subscribe. And yeah, I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace out.